Let's start with something I think we can all relate to. You know that sudden spike of anxiety when you see a little red notification badge and you just cannot figure out how to clear it? You click, you scroll, you check 3 different apps, and the noise just keeps coming. It makes you wonder, right? Why do software notifications so often feel, well, overwhelmingly complicated? It's a huge question for anyone working online today, and it almost always comes down to the invisible software architecture running right beneath the surface.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into exactly that problem by looking at a genuinely fascinating real-world case study. We are going to unpack how Slack's engineering team battled notification overload and how they made the incredibly bold choice to just completely rebuild their legacy systems from the ground up. Their goal was simple, but man, it was ambitious. Bring calm, clarity, and consistency back to the daily experience for millions of people.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by diagnosing the notification noise, then unravel the legacy architecture. After that, we'll look at the unified preference model, tackle those tricky cross-platform parity challenges, and wrap up with how they achieved intentional awareness. Let's jump right into part 1, diagnosing the noise, and really look at this universal frustration.
So before writing a single line of new code, Slack's research highlighted a pretty startling correlation. They found that the more channels a user joined, the more overwhelmed they became. And get this, internal data revealed that notification issues were actually a top 3 driver of customer experience tickets. I mean, think about that. Out of all the complex features in a tool like Slack, people were literally submitting support tickets because they felt completely powerless against their own workspace noise.
All right, moving on to section 2. Let's unravel that legacy architecture and peek under the hood.
The confusion users were feeling wasn't just some clunky UI, it was actually a tangled mess of technical debt baked deep into the system's architecture. They were dealing with 4 completely conflicting mental models. This meant a nothing setting on your phone meant something completely different from an off setting on your desktop. On top of that, there's this hidden coupling between preferences, highly inconsistent states where settings just wouldn't reliably sync across your devices, and advanced controls scattered everywhere. If you turned off push notifications to just quiet your phone for a minute, you might accidentally sacrifice your in-app awareness entirely. It was basically a super frustrating game of trial and error.
So the crucial point here is this architectural shift. The engineering team realized, okay, we need a completely new philosophy. Under the old paradigm, what you were notified about and how you receive it were tightly tangled together. The new paradigm completely decouples them. They separated what the events are, say a new message or a direct mention, from how the system buzzes, dings, or badges your screen. This separation, this untangling, was absolutely the foundational breakthrough they needed for the entire rebuild.
And that brings us to section 3, the unified preference model, and how they structured the solution.
Now, decoupling the architecture sounds great in theory, right? But to fix this for millions of active users, they basically had to rebuild the airplane while it was flying in midair. To avoid a totally disastrous rollout, they employed what's called a read time strategy. Instead of forcing people into the new system with risky database-level overwrites, which, could easily corrupt data or just completely ruin user trust, they used some really clever back-end logic. They took the legacy off settings and simply interpreted them as the new decoupled mention state, just with push notifications disabled. It was like read-time magic. It let them safely migrate users seamlessly, ensuring backwards compatibility and giving them a safe fallback just in case things went sideways.
They pulled off this incredibly smooth transition by introducing one brand new preference flag, desktop push enabled. Because this exact preference didn't exist before, they were able to use it to safely backfill every single existing user. If you had things set to off before, this system silently mapped that behind the scenes to this new flag, without interrupting your workflow at all. It was brilliant, really. By doing this, they created a single, totally reliable driver for push notifications moving forward.
Let's look at section 4 now, cross-platform parity challenges. Basically, making the devices actually talk to each other.
Getting mobile and desktop to sync up perfectly was, hands down, one of their hardest tasks. It actually required them to completely rewrite legacy iOS code. To pull it off, they built this really clean conceptual hierarchy. Notice how it's tiered? First, you have what to notify you about, like all new messages, mentions, or just mute. Then, completely separate from that, you have push notifications, as in where do you actually want to be interrupted, desktop and mobile, desktop only, mobile only, or completely disabled. And finally, an advanced tier for the really specific badge controls. By organizing options into this explicit structure, users finally had predictable choices, no more guessing.
Along with this squeaky clean back-end hierarchy, they completely revolutionized the front-end interface too. They totally ditched that clunky manual save button for an auto-save experience built entirely on reusable React components. Back in the day, users would tweak their settings, forget to hit save, and then wonder why their phone was still buzzing during a meeting. Now, the second you click an option, bam, the changes take effect immediately. And because those UI components are reusable, the design is instantly consistent no matter where you use the app.
Of course, migrating millions of people is not without its hurdles. The engineering team learned some pretty hard lessons here. Step 1. Always ensure read-time fallbacks so user trust is never broken. Step 2. Monitor strictly for malformed schema issues. They actually found that even a minuscule flaw in the data's blueprint could completely reset user preferences. They'd have to scrub the data and flush the memcache, which is basically the system's short-term memory, just to fix it. And step 3, clarity beats cleverness. Using explicit desktop and mobile values worked way better than trying to rely on overly clever but super fragile sync parameters.
All right, which brings us to our final section, achieving intentional awareness and looking at the real-world impact.
So, the big question, did this massive decoupling effort actually fix the notification fatigue? Well, the data emphatically proves it worked. Settings engagement saw a massive 5x sustained increase after launch, and what's really incredible about that is it wasn't just a one-time spike of curious users clicking around after an update. This elevated engagement sustained for weeks. It proved that users were actively and confidently refining their preferences, all because they finally understood how the system actually worked.
And this created some amazing downstream effects. Because the new architecture finally matched the user's actual mental models, the support burden, those frustrating CX tickets we talked about at the very beginning, dropped significantly. At the exact same time, perceived user control went way up. And interestingly enough, because the global defaults were just so much more intuitive now, the need for frantic per-channel overrides actually decreased. The software just naturally worked the way people expected it to. Honestly, all of this massive engineering effort really boils down to this one incredible quote from the Slack team: turning Slack from a source of interruption into a tool for intentional focus. By having the courage to tear down their legacy systems instead of just, slapping on more band-aids, and by completely separating the what from the how, they actually achieved this core philosophy for millions of users worldwide. They quite literally gave people their focus back.
So I want to leave you with this question to reflect on. Whether you're thinking about the systems you use every day, or maybe the software you build yourself. Does your software design create noise, or does it empower intentional focus? The way we architect our digital environments has a profound emotional impact on the people who live and work in them. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating engineering journey with me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.